what is up guys? It's Shannon from the Trinisphere where Timmy, Johnny, and Spike battle over all things EDH. Today I'm going to take a budget Johnny look at Erebos bleak-hearted, the new 4-mana 5/6. Whoa, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. How about you like and subscribe our channel to get notifications when our new deck techs and gameplays come out every Tuesday and Friday. And also hit us up on Twitter at the Trinisphere if you want to take part in our polls where we ask you guys what you want to see us play or build next. Alright, let's dive into Erebos bleak-hearted, the 4-mana 5/6 legendary enchantment god. Erebos 2.0. He is indestructible like before. He also has devotion clause like before. You must have 5 or greater or he ain't a creature. He also has a new ability that says whenever another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life, and if you do, draw a card. Notice it doesn't say token here. He has a 2-mana activated ability that says sacrifice another creature until you give target creature -2, -1 until end of turn. So right now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking, wow, a legendary Grim Harspex? You gotta be kidding me here, man. This is awesome. So let's build a Aristocrats deck around Erebos bleak-hearted. We'll do it on a budget and we'll make it lean and mean. But we're gonna be using a Johnny take on it, so we're gonna want some combos, some infinities. So here we have 2 different combos that I want to talk about today. Number 1, it uses a card close to my heart, Mortuary, along with Bolas's Citadel. Mortuary is a 4-mana enchantment that says whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you must put it on top of your library. You must. The card's dangerous. If you put this into play nonchalantly, people can kill your creatures and lock you out of drawing any other cards for the rest of the game by just killing your creatures over and over again. So don't nonchalantly play Mortuary. But in conjunction with Bolas's Citadel, that sweet semi-budget 6-mana legendary artifact that says you may look at the top of your library at any time, and you may play the top card of your library by using your life instead of mana. It also has a tap ability, but who cares about that? That's not relevant. What this is about is Mortuary puts cards that die back on top of your deck, and then Bolas's Citadel allows you to replay them by using life instead of mana, which you have a ton more life than you have mana on average, especially in this deck. But anyways, with this combo, we can play the same creature infinitely and trigger all kinds of our various effects as many times as we can. And if we manage to have some life gain effects that offset the mana cost of the creature that's doing all the dying, then that means we can go infinite here. Bolas's Citadel will do a little bit of damage to us, but we'll gain it all back through other effects. The 2 cards I want to mention that are really good in this combo, 2 creatures that are awesome in this deck, are Endless One and Ugin's Conjurant. Endless One's an X-mana 0/0 Eldrazi that enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. And similarly, Ugin's Conjurant does the same thing, but he has an additional clause that says whenever damage will be dealt to him, you remove that many +1/+1 counters instead of him taking damage. These cards, really, truthfully, to me, are 0-mana creatures that enter the battlefield and immediately die. So with the Mortuary Bolas's Citadel combo, you play an Endless One at 0 mana, it dies immediately. Mortuary puts it on top of your library, and then Bolas's Citadel says, oh yeah, you can play that card for no life. You can play it for 0 life. So you're like, say, what? So now I'm triggering all my dead triggers, my draw triggers, blah, 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 for 0 mana, 0 life loss. Just loop them until everyone gets bored of watching and quits. The second combo I want to talk about here is based on Decaying Soil. This is a pretty cool card. 3-mana enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, remove a card in your graveyard from the game. So that's kind of a downside. So this card must be pretty good if it has an upkeep downside. It has Threshold, so this next thing only works if you have 7 cards in your graveyard. And that Threshold ability says whenever a non-token creature you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay a generic mana, and if you do, return that card to your hand. So this is similar to Mortuary in that it lets us to replay the same creatures, but it shortcuts the fact that it goes on top of your library and instead puts it directly into your hand. But it costs 1 mana, so it's another hoop that we gotta jump through in order to go infinite. So the way we do that, first of all, is we use creatures that basically cost no mana. So we can talk about the Endless One and Ugin's Conjurant would be good here, but also we have additional ones that generate mana when they enter the battlefield or die, so effectively offsetting their own costs. We're also going to be running Cathodian, Mirror Moon Vessel, and Priest of Gix, all of which when they enter the battlefield or die, generate mana equal to their own costs. So, in this loop, they're kind of free. But Decaying Soul requires 1 mana every time we do this, so we're actually losing out. The economy isn't quite there, so we get to add in a little bit more here in the form of cards that generate mana when our things die, including Pawn of Ulamog and Pitiless Plunderer. Pawn of Ulamog, 3-mana 2/2 Vampire Shaman. When it or another non-token creature we control dies, we create a Eldrazi Spawn, which of course can be sacked for colorless mana. So in fact, Pawn of Ulamog generates a colorless mana whenever one of our creatures die. It also creates an additional death trigger. When that little Eldrazi Spawn dies, it can trigger things that look for any creature dying, not just non-token creatures, which, Erebos does. So, this guy can actually draw you extra cards when your things are dying. Pitiless Plunderer just makes a treasure which can be used for mana of any color. It's pretty good because Pawn makes colorless mana, but Pitiless makes black mana, which will be important later on. But all of these cards you can see with Pawn of Lumog, Piteous Plunder in play, now we can loop the same creature over and over again and generate the mana we need for Decaying Soil to put it back in our hand and replay it infinitely, triggering all of our stuff. So you can see these are our two combos that we're focused around. Pretty lean and mean. Bolsa Citadel is a pretty costly card at 6 mana in a deck that has very few lands, the lowest I've ever run in a deck, but it's pretty easy to get out, and I'll talk about a little bit in our ramp package later. But let's talk about our Aristocrats first, the cards that really get their rocks off watching things die. We're going to be using Ayara, First of Locthwain, Death Greeter, Drost Harvester, and Gate to the Afterlife. Gate to the Afterlife is an awesome card in this deck. This 3-mana artifact says whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we gain a life. So this helps offset the life we're going to be losing by constantly triggering Erebos, because we're going to trigger Erebos hundreds of times. Not maybe 100, but enough to kill us probably without any of these mitigation effects, helping us gain life back. When that creature dies, you may also draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. So notable here that it is a May effect, because when we go infinite in a lot of these other combos, there's a good potential that if we don't find enough of the draining effects to kill our opponents, that we can deck ourselves. So we can actually stop drawing cards once we reach certain points, and especially when we start having the Bolsa Citadel Mortuary lock, we don't want to accidentally draw the Ugin's Conduit. We want to leave it on top so we can play it with Bolsa Citadel. We do not want to draw it. So it allows us to shut off that draw effect whenever we like. It also has a 2-mana activate ability to go search up Godpharaoh's Gift, which people pressure me to play, but I did not want to play it in this deck. This card is so much better on the battlefield doing what it does. Turning it into a thing that triggers only once per turn is against like my Johny soul. I don't want things that trigger only once per turn. I want to trigger them as many times as I want when I want to do it. So I don't like Godpharaoh's Gift in this deck. This deck is all about small, crappy creatures, then just playing tons of them per turn. I don't want to turn a freaking Cauldron Familiar into a 4/4. That's just not what I'm interested in doing. Additional Aristocrats we have in this deck are Vindictive Vampire and Zulapur Cutthroat. The more traditional, I'm going to drain you for life every time something dies. So these cards are all pretty good in here. Moving on to our sack engines, you're going to be putting things in the bin, doing the work, grinding out the meat. We're going to have Bloodthrone Vampire, Karen Feeder, Dimir Houseguard, and Lampad of Death's Vigil. Dimir Houseguard's more in here as a tutor effect to go find Mortuary whenever we want, but you know, in a pinch, he is a sack outlet that does not cost mana, and those are the best kinds. We don't want to spend mana, because then again, it's another part of our loop that we have to work around, is having to spend mana. So, you know, Bloodthrone Vampire and Karen Feeder are exemplary examples of this thing, and I like that they can even eat themselves. So, you know, if you're in a pinch and you need to trigger some draw effects, you can just play a Karen Feeder and have it eat itself immediately, so it sacks itself. And Lampad's a new one that's kind of like an Aristocrat. It sacks a creature and then causes each opponent to lose life and has gain life, but it costs mana, so not the greatest, but we'll run it. And then we're gonna have 3 more, including Plague Rusolka, Skull Clamp, and Woe Strider. Skull Clamp's the most expensive card in this deck at $5, and I think it might have pushed my budget over 50 recently, which is unfortunate, but it is too good to pass up. The card's insane. Most of the cards in our deck have toughness 1. I kind of focused on that being the case, so Skull Clamp just runs rickshaw through the deck, just drawing us tons and tons of cards, triggering Aristocrat effect. And Woe Strider is just a replacement for Viscera Seer. It's 3 mana instead of 1, so it kind of stinks, but you know, it's much cheaper, so we're gonna run that instead. Next, we're going to talk about some cards that really like to die. These cards just generate effects when they die and beneficial ones. So they're the fodder for our Skull Clamp and our Aristocrats, and they kind of fill out, you know, the filler part of the deck, helping us dig in deep for our combos. We're going to run Carrion Thrall, Cauldron Familiar, Direfleet Hoarder, and Festering Goblin. So the cat's in here, but the oven is not. It's just too slow once again. I like to trigger things as many times as I can in one turn, not just once per turn. So I didn't really focus on this, some kind of like untap the oven effect, although I hear that's a ton of fun in standard. But the other ones, Carrion Thrall and Direfleet Hoarder, kind of generate mana when they die. One generates a Scion, similar to a Spawn, can be sacked, and thus triggering Aristocrats again to make mana. And then the other one makes a treasure. But these are both pretty good at 2 mana. They kind of offset their own cost, so I like them a lot. In addition to these 4, we're going to be running Festering Mummy, Festering Newt, Grim Physician, and Mere Sire. So we're running like the whole Festering cycle. These creatures that are 1 mana 1/1s, and when they die, they put a -1/-1 onto something. In some cases, it's still on a turn. In some cases, it's a counter. It all doesn't really matter to me. They're just a 1 mana 1/1 that can be sacked and generate a good effect. Not really a good effect, but an effect, a notable effect. And then Mere Sire is kind of similar to the Carrion Thrall. It's a 2 mana 1/1. When it dies, it creates a 1/1. But the mirror that it creates can't be sacked, so it's kind of like a worse version of Carrion Thrall. But we're gonna run it. And then round out the sack me category, we're gonna have Perilous Mirror and Shambling Goblin. Shambling Goblin's an honorary Festering Goblin. I guess they just wanted to remake Festering Goblin, but not call it that. So they made basically the same card again. And then Perilous Mirror doesn't give -1, instead it does 2 damage. So we can combine all of these -1, -1 effects and the damage to take down a large creature, or we can just snipe small like mana dorks to just slow everyone down while we combo off. Next up, I'm going to talk about cards that sacrifice themselves. Cards that don't need a sack engine in order to work. We have Augur of Skulls, Bile Urchin, Blood Pet, and Crypt Creeper. Blood Pet is a really cool card. I wanted to mention this one, call this one out, because it has a lot of infinite loop lines that it can do itself. Because, similar to those other creatures I talked about, that when they die or enter the battlefield, they generate mana, this guy can sacrifice himself to generate the mana that he costs. So he takes an extra step out of the equation by giving you a way to sack Blood Pet to generate that mana, as opposed to Cathodian, which needs to have something to sack it. So Blood Pet goes infinite, basically with Mortuary and Erebos or something like that. So you sack Blood Pet for a black mana, Mortuary puts it on top of your library, Erebos draws it for turn, or draws it off of its triggered effect, and then what do you know? You have a black mana in your pool that you can use to play Blood Pet. So you can loop this as long as you have other ways to offset the 2 life loss each iteration. And then next up we have Blood Cultist, Fume Spitter, and Heap Doll. And Blood Cultist is another super dangerous one. Instead of offsetting the mana cost, it offsets the life loss costs of our looping. So with Blood Cultist in play in Bolas' Citadel, we can play Blood Cultist for 1 mana and then immediately sack Blood Cultist to gain that 1 life back. So we play Bolas' Citadel, causes us to lose 1 life, and then we sacrifice Death Cultist to gain that life back. And then if we have Mortuary in play, it puts Death Cultist back on top. So this is one of those cards that with the Mortuary and Bolas' Citadel combo goes infinite very nicely and kills our opponents. All right, that's the meat of the deck. So let's talk about the veggies, which is the ramp removal and the draw. We do have ramp in here because this deck has very few lands, and we want to be maximizing our potential to hit creatures every single time. But we do run some nice ramp spells in the form of rituals in order to get Erebos down as fast as possible. We're running Cabal Ritual, Carnival of Souls, Culling the Weak, and Dark Ritual. So you see the classic Dark Ritual in here, 1 mana for 3 black, but we also going to run Cabal Ritual, 2 mana for 3 black, which is bad, but Threshold, 5 mana instead. Just having 7 cards in your graveyard is super easy in this deck. It's very easy by turn 4 to have 3-4 creatures in your graveyard. It's very easy to get Threshold in this deck. So this card ends up being a late game kind of. Let's slam a Bolas' Citadel off of this thing. Carnival of Souls is a really cool card. It's a little dangerous though. This 2 mana enchantment says whenever a creature comes into the enters the battlefield, you lose a life and add a black to your mana pool. So notice it doesn't say under your control or anything like that. When your opponents play creatures, this pings you for damage but generates black mana for you. So this is kind of cool because you can use this on opponents' turns when they play creatures to activate Erebos, to get mana to activate your Erebos. But more so, this helps offset like those other cards that we mentioned before, the Pitiless Plunderer and the Pawn of Lumog. This helps you offset mana costs when we're looping infinitely, but it adds additional damage that we have to deal with in other ways. So it's kind of it has a give or take. It's not a perfect card in this deck by any means, but it's still pretty good combo potential. Additionally, we're gonna have Leaden Mirror, Pilgrim's Eye, and Songs of the Dam, which is an insane ritual in this deck. This black mana, this 1 black instant adds a black to your pool for every creature in your graveyard. Routinely, just for a single black, just make 5 mana, 6 mana. This is how you cast your 6 mana Citadel very easily, Songs of the Dam. But I've had it generate 15 very easily, like late game. It's just an insane card in this deck, and I'm glad there's a deck that can run it. Let's talk about our removal real quick. We're gonna talk about Carrionet, Dark Blast, Defile, and Font of Agonies. Carrionet is a weird one I found. This 2 mana 1/1 skeleton has a 4 mana activated ability that says exile Carrionet and target creature from the game unless that creature's controller pays 2 mana to counter this ability. And we can only use this ability when Carrionet's in your graveyard. So this one's a really funny card. I love playing it. You just end up skull clamping it early game, putting it in your graveyard. People forget about it, and then what do you know? You can just take down a Titan or something like that when no one has extra mana up, when they didn't leave 2 mana open. Defile is really strong in this deck, although we don't have a lot of lands. We are very light on lands, so this is routinely like a black for -3/-3, but it can get up there late game, -6/-6, something pretty easily. Font of Agony is awesome in this deck. Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agony. So we pay 2 life to Erebos, it puts 2 counters on Font of Agonies. And then once it has 4 counters, you can pay 2 mana and remove those counters or destroy a creature. So very easy. As soon as Font of Agony is in play, I mean, you can trigger Erebos 2, 3, 4 times a turn easily in this deck. So now you have mana to kill things. This is a pretty good removal spell in here. We're gonna add some more removal in the form of Fourth Bridge Prowler, Necrotic Wound, and Tragic Slip. Fourth Bridge Prowler is kind of like another festering creature, but it gives a -1/-1 on enter the battlefield as opposed to when it dies. So I put it in the removal section. You can use this on, you know, turn 1 when you're going last out of 4-man pod to kill like a Birds of Paradise, which is great. Necrotic Wound has Undergrowth, so it counts the number of creatures in your graveyard, and it gives target creature -X. So this one's pretty easy. Like I said before, Songs of the Damned routinely makes 5 mana on a normal game, and if the game goes long, you're talking like -13 to a creature with Necrotic Wounds. So this can bring down an Eldrazi Titan pretty easily. And similarly, Tragic Slip has that morbid -13. Very easy to trigger in this deck. Onto our draw package, we have Altars, Dust Legion, Zealot, Grim Haruspex, and Inquisitive Puppet. The last one, not really a draw spell, it's a scry spell, but I'm giving it a pass here. It's a 1-mana creature, give it a break. ETB scry 1, and then it's an 0/2, which kind of sucks also because you can't clamp it, but you can exile it to make a 1/1 that can be clamped. So it's got some upside. It doesn't trigger things quite as nicely as I'd want it to. If it would sacrifice it to create a 1/1, it would be an amazing card in this deck, but you can't have it all, all right? And then we're gonna round out our draw with Mausoleum Secrets, Midnight Reaper, and Sign in Blood. Mausoleum Secrets is the only tutor other than Dimir Houseguard in here, but it is a powerful one. This 2-mana instant says, search your library for a black card with CMC less than or equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This can get Bolas' Citadel very easily. Almost every time I've ever cast it, it can get Bolas' Citadel. That's the most expensive card in our deck is Bolas' Citadel. If you don't want Bolas' Citadel, the most expensive card in our deck is like 4 mana, and it's not very good. So you can use this to go get a Carrion Feeder, you know, 1-drop. So you just have an infinite sack outlet. You can go get this to get Defile real quick. It's instant speed. So you can go get Defile or Necrotic Wound to go blow up a creature or something like that. It's a very versatile tutor, and I'm glad there's a deck that can run it. Finally, we're going to talk about our recursion, which includes Pit Keeper, Postmortem Lunge, and Unearth. Pit Keeper is kind of like a Grave Digger, except it's 2 mana. It only works if we have 4 creatures or more in our graveyard, which is like I said, very easy to do. So this is a 2-mana Grave Digger. Postmortem Lunge is crazy fun card in this deck. For X and Phyrexian Black, you can return a creature with CMC X from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. That's kind of a downside, the whole exile clause, but we can avoid that by simply sacrificing the creature before it ever reaches that step. So this is effectively, you can pay no life and just X mana to put in a creature that costs X into play. So, you know, we can routinely reanimate our Carrion Feeder late game, so we have that sack engine for that 1 turn. But we can also use this on Ugin's Conjurant and Endless One. So we can pay 2 life instead of black mana and 0, put one of those 0-drop creatures into play. So this is effectively a free reanimation spell in those cases. And those, of course, are really great because we can use those early game to trigger Erebos to draw cards, put them in our graveyard, and then once we assemble the combo, we can use Postmortem Lunge for 0 mana to put Ugin's Conduit back into play and go infinite. And Unearth is really nice in here because so many creatures in this deck cost 3 or less, including Ugin's Conjurant, for example. It returns a creature with CMC 3 or less from graveyard directly to the battlefield for a single black. So a budget reanimate. And then quickly to talk about my lands in this deck, there are 32 basics and a Mortuary Mire and a Crypt of Agadeem for a total of 34 lands. The lowest I've ever run in a deck, but you just don't want to draw lands off of Skull Clamp. You don't want to draw lands off of Erebos triggers. It ends up, you know, completely taking the air out of your tires when you're trying to combo off and you start just hitting clusters of lands. So I did my best to get it as low as possible, and I play tested the hell out of this. So the 34 seems about right. Crypt of Agadeem is an awesome land. It's, you know, it's a Songs of the Damned on a land. Can't pass that up even if it is a couple bucks. And then Mortuary Mire is like a one-shot mortuary. See what they did there? That puts a creature from your graveyard on top of your library when it ETBs. So you can use that to resurrect, you know, your Ugin's Conjurant. Another way to get your Ugin's Conjurant back into play when you're about to go infinite. So, all right, guys, that rounds out my Erebos bleak-hearted $50, about $55 as Aristocrats Johny list. I went really deep on making it as efficient and low to the ground as possible, and it's a ton of fun. I played a lot of games with it. People just sit there slack-jawed when they can't believe how many times you're able to put creatures into play, sacrifice them, do something, blah, 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 when you only have like 4 lands. They're like, Shannon's missing land drops, LOL, and you're like, I don't need the lands anymore, man. I'm beyond lands at this point. So anyways, tell me what you guys think about this Erebos list. Are you hyped to see me play this in the Gods versus Titans matchup? Do you think like the Titans even stand a chance against a list like this that can combo off turn 4, turn 5 super easy? I don't think so. But you guys let me know what you think. Anyways, this is Shannon the Johny signing off. As always, great minds brew alike. Wow, what a great video that was. My favorite part was the thing with the cards. If you enjoyed that video, you can support the Trinisphere by using our affiliate links when you go to buy cards from tcgplayer.com. Using our affiliate links means that TCG Player will donate a portion of their cut to us whenever you buy a card from them. All you need to do is follow that link to the site, and then you can go ahead and shop as normal and then check out. And everything will be handled by TCG Player. No need to enter a code or any of that nonsense. So you can help Juan keep churning out those budget deck lists, Hogg overcome his rock addiction, and me, Shannon, keep well stocked with Red Bulls for these late night editing sessions. Many thanks from us at the Trinisphere. Catch you later.